Hello folks and welcome to the Weekend Warm-Up, a new show coming your way every Thursday where me, Will Buxton, and my good friend, senior writer at F1.com, Lawrence Barretto, will be taking you through the stories that we've unearthed on this opening day, this media day, in the paddock. First of all, it's great to be back, isn't it? Even though it is slightly different. The paddock, as you will see, these signposts all over the place, following one-way systems, observing social distancing, washing your hands, and of course wearing a face mask as we are doing right now. It's a new normal. It's a very different feeling in the paddock today, isn't it, Lawrence? And it's not the only thing that's changed really since testing.
No, it's been some really strange times, Will, over these last few weeks and months. I think you're right. I think it's great that we're back racing. I think the F1 teams have come together. They've worked together to create equipment for the COVID-19 pandemic, state-of-the-art equipment. And I think another thing that links into is this We Race as One initiative.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, the idea is to shine a light really on frontline workers and the work that they're doing, but also how important it is to push for diversity, for inclusion, for ending racism. Now I know there's been a lot of talk on social media about, well, does sport and politics mix? Well, Formula One's position is pretty clear.
Yeah.
Ending racism is not politics, in my view, and I think that's important that we really move on from that going forward. And so the new pledges that Formula One are working on are to create a new foundation to improve diversity. We've seen the drivers have been very vocal. Lewis Hamilton, of course, they want to be spokespeople and the vehicle for change. And I think over the coming weeks and months, we're really going to see a change, hopefully. And if everyone works together, I think it could be a really good thing going forward.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Of course, it's something that everyone was talking about at the tail end of last year, bringing in their sort of initiatives towards inclusion, diversity, also sustainability, and Formula One's place in a rapidly evolving but socially conscious world as well, massively important. But
I think the thing is, it's not the work of a moment. You know, change takes time, doesn't it? And I think that we've got some time now to put some real plans in place. It sounds like a massive project, but I think a massive change is needed. And I think the good thing is we're talking about it now, and hopefully moving forward, we can see some real change in the world. And you know, it's a positive way to start the season. We can go racing.
Absolutely, and one team hoping for change this season will be Williams. Spoke to both of the drivers today. Nicholas Latifi looking forward to his first race as an F1 driver. He says the pressure's off him because he's actually at a track that he knows, and he didn't know Australia, so this plays to him. And Georgie Russell told me earlier today, I'm just going to approach every race like I'm fighting for a championship, because every race weekend for me means so much, because it's all about my future, and I know that every session the people that have my future in their hands are going to be watching.
It's amazing what confidence a virtual world championship gives you, isn't it?
Yes. Well, he's now won a title at every level, hasn't he? F4, GP3, F2, virtual F1.
Exactly, and you can really see in his face how confident he is after he won that championship. And I know it's only an e-racing championship, but it's victory.
Don't say only, the internet will jump on you.
But it's not true racing, is it? And I think that's what we've heard actually from the drivers today, is how excited they are that they've spent lockdown racing these sim games and having a great time with their rivals, but now they want to get back in the car. I think it's really encouraging what we've seen from Williams in pre-season testing. It'll be really interesting to see whether they can kind of carry that through when we finally get to see that car out on track.
Great for George as well, the lockdown, because it added so much personality to him. You know, we didn't get to see much of him last year, maybe a couple of little clips of his interviews, but he had quite a quiet year. So great to see that. Haas as well, spoke to both Roman and to Kevin today. They said that although we thought coming out of testing things didn't look too hot, they were actually pretty happy because at least they know what's going on with their tyres.
I think so. They spent all of last year turned up at a race weekend not knowing what was going on, and that must be really demoralising for a driver. So I think when Roman was saying that they feel like they've got on top of those issues and they've got a really solid foundation to work on, that team was impressive 2 years ago, and you've got to think that if they've got a solid base to work on, it's going to be good news for them.
These guys, completely the opposite though. We're down here at Alfa Romeo and they are in a sketchy place. Giovinazzi today was not feeling all that optimistic going into the weekend. They've got issues after testing, and it feels mad that we're standing here in July still talking about testing, but they don't know. You know, they still don't know how their cars are going to fare in race trim.
No, we've had this massive gap between Australia and coming here, but of course they haven't run the cars apart from a simple shakedown or running an old car. So it's honest that Antonio comes out and he says, I don't really know what's going to happen. It's going to be an interesting one because they were one of the ones who went under the radar at testing. I would lean towards they were a little bit weaker, I think, on the long runs and the short runs, and I think that's a little bit of a concern, probably behind what Antonio was talking about today.
And Kimi's saying he's not going to decide his future until a little bit later in the season. Of course, people's futures has been all the talk of lockdown because we've had so many driver changes confirmed. Of course, the big one, we'll get onto that a little bit later, Sebastian Vettel will leave Ferrari to be replaced by Carlos Sainz. Huge story. And Daniel Ricciardo will take his place at McLaren. I'm sorry I keep touching my mask. I know I shouldn't. Next time I pass one of those antiseptic things, I'll get some on my hand. BWT, Racing Point, F1 team, the pink Mercedes. These guys couldn't really hide how optimistic they are coming into the season, can they?
No, I tell you what, when that pink Mercedes turned up at testing, it turned a few heads, didn't it?
Just a few.
I think they're super excited. I think they were probably the team most disappointed not to race in Australia because they had the momentum. I'll tell you what, that team are so confident coming into this race, and I think that even with the development that the others might have been able to make either side of the shutdown, they're looking great.
Well, here's the thing, they're only going to put one major development on that car all season. We know that Renault have turned up here with some major upgrades to their car. Ferrari, for example, and there are a lot of people thinking that those guys were quicker than Ferrari in testing. Ferrari are turning up with a whole new car in Hungary in a couple of race weekends' time. So people already starting to get the march on them. As you say, if it had started in Australia, they were potentially fourth, third in the pecking order?
I think at times they showed pace to challenge that top three, which is why Checo today was saying that we can fight the top three going into these early races. I think key for them is to get points early doors because, like you were saying, so many teams bringing upgrades, they need to take advantage of that package before they turn their attention to next year.
And never has every race been more important. We have an indeterminate season. We don't know how many races we're going to get. Every race, every point counts right now.
Definitely, and I think that team, one of the most efficient with their budget, they're the ones who are going to be able to take the opportunities when they come. We've seen Checo take so many podiums when he shouldn't have done, really.
He's the giant beater. He's the guy you want on your team for all occasions. What about Alfa Tauri, another team that had a relatively quiet pre-season testing?
I think we were all pretty excited about their new livery and obviously their new name, but they were pretty quiet, like you say, Will. I think from what Pierre and Dunny were saying at testing, they were pretty confident, and that kind of seemed the same today when they were talking to us. I feel like they're going to be there or thereabouts in the upper midfield, but I think it's going to be a tough one to kind of challenge the Racing Points and the Renaults and the McLarens.
Now these guys, they're losing their big star driver, and that is a kick in the teeth before the season's even begun. On good form today, as always, this kid just thought that the whole world was against him and never wanted him to get back to racing after the shutdown. The car looked good on the long runs in pre-season. They've got updates to it this weekend. Are these guys a threat to the Racing Points, to the McLarens, possibly even to the Ferraris coming into this weekend?
I think they're a massive threat, definitely to the Racing Points and to the McLarens. The fact that they've got so many updates here this weekend, I think is huge for them. I think whether it's enough to be challenging the Ferraris and the Red Bulls and the Mercedes, probably not enough, but we've seen earlier today, Charles was talking about the struggles they might encounter. Renault could be in a position to take advantage of that.
This team, McLaren, went very strongly here last year, which they're saying, both the drivers, like, yes, of course it was good for us last year, but our car has changed so much. Hello, Andreas. Our car has changed so much since last year. Our competitive rivals have developed so much since last year. You can't look at last year as how we're going to fare this year because it's just, you can't, it's apples and oranges. You can't do it.
No, but I think what the approach that McLaren's taken is exactly the right one. They had a massive year, but they didn't want to get ahead of themselves. I think they've set themselves some realistic targets. They've got that structure in place that you were just mentioning with Andreas. I'm really excited about what these guys can do. You've got a Carlos Sainz who's going to want to finish on a high. You've got Lando Norris who's going to want to prove he can lead this team when Danny Rick comes in to the pole. I think it's a great thing for these guys.
This is it. Lando's been a part of the team for such a long time, but he's kind of got to get his feet under the table this year, hasn't he? He's got to prove not just that he's the measure of Carlos, but that he's better than Carlos. Really get himself embedded with the team so that when Daniel turns up, Daniel's turning up to his team.
Yes.
And Lando said today, look, I don't want him to come into an environment that's not going to be happy because I want to welcome him and work together with him. But there was a little bit of I want this place to be mine. This is my team.
A nice little bit of confidence, I think, in his face, and we haven't really seen much of that since Lando came into Formula One. He was very nervous.
He's very
self-effacing.
He's very self-critical.
And I think that was a positive thing when he's come in, but I think we're seeing that confidence build, and it's coming at just the right time because McLaren will want him to step up, I think, when Carlos eventually moves on.
Now, folks, I know you will see we're trying to socially distance, trying to keep 2 metres from everybody. We don't have to be at 2 metres. We're in our same bubble, so we're staying in the same hotel down in Knittelfeld. Everyone on F1 Digital, we're on our little bubble, so we're allowed to be a little bit closer to each other. But we are trying to stay 2 metres away from everybody as they as they walk through. We're not even allowed to go down to the teams. If you look down there, Steve, we're not allowed between the trucks, we're not allowed down to the team areas behind the garages. We have to stay in this runway down here. This is the only place that we're allowed to go. We're not even allowed up to the media centre, the print press over the other side of the track in the media centre. We have to stay in our F1 digital bubble down in a little office down the end of the pit lane. It's a very strange new normal, isn't it?
It's definitely been a different day today, Will. I think there's a few different things. Obviously the masks, the biggest thing, but I think what we're doing, our day jobs, we've just gone back to normal. It's amazing how people can just click straight back in, and you can see the excitement. People just want to get back racing again. Talking
about clicking back into normal, Max Verstappen, monosyllabic and not giving anything away in his answers to the press today, but these guys have got to be feeling confident coming here, don't they? This is a track, and Hungary as well, where Red Bull excelled over the last couple of years. Everyone says, but the overheating of the tyres last year for Mercedes, etc., played into their hands. When you look at Max's start, how much he fell back and still managed to whomp the field as he did. This is a track that he loves. He goes so well here. If everything plays to Red Bull's strengths and the car looked great in testing, I don't think it's silly to say these guys have got really the lead of the championship to lose in these first three races.
No, I think there's a very good chance we could come out of these first three races, 2 in Austria and Hungary, with Max Verstappen leading the World Championship. It genuinely is that possible. It's not just because of his driving ability, because Red Bull and Honda have delivered a car and engine this year, which look great.
And Honda have stepped it up, even since testing. New engine on the board, because of course, until we have the first race, nothing's locked.
No.
So that's big for them. They ran their TV day, but they had some upgrades on the car. A lot of people said that's not good. Why have they done that? Well, first race hasn't happened, so there isn't a spec car for them to upgrade. They can put what they want on it. You spoke to Alex today. I didn't. How was he?
Yes, he was in great form. We did it over Zoom because obviously the social distancing rules, but he seems super confident this year. I think he's really benefited from this extra time that we've had during lockdown to kind of chill out and also get to know his engineers better, to really build that relationship together. I think he's come back here having had a proper pre-season, and he knows that he's got a good car underneath him. And if he can kind of just get stuck in from the off, kind of close that gap in qualifying to Max, as well as keep that kind of gap that he had in the races, I think we're going to be talking about Alexander Albon a lot this year.
We are going to be talking about these two.
Oh yes, we are.
Long. How much has the world fallen in love with Charles Leclerc over the lockdown period? I mean, the guy proved it on track last year, and then over the lockdown, dressed up in a banana suit, getting locked out of his flat. Locking his girlfriend out of his flat. We saw so much heart of this guy, so much personality, which, and without meaning to be rude, but for a Ferrari driver in this era of close scrutiny and sort of media shutdown at times, how brilliant just to see the real side of a racer like that.
I'm super excited to see what kind of Charles we're going to see over the next couple of races, because he was really honest when he said that when he was in this paddock environment beforehand, he felt a little bit nervous. He perhaps didn't want to play it up, but we've obviously seen the real Charles now. There's nowhere to hide, and I'm really hoping that he keeps that up, because I think it's going to build his fan base. I think it's going to help his confidence, because he can relax a lot. And like you were saying when you were talking to him earlier, he's feeling in good shape even though the car's looking pretty difficult.
Seb, I've got a feeling about Seb this year. I talked to him this afternoon and I said, what did you do on the lockdown? And he said, well, I've got a gym in my place, so I've been really working out. I've never felt fitter. I've never felt hungrier for a season. And I asked him, I said, look, we know now this is your last year at Ferrari. Are you coming into this season sad? With each passing race, it's another race gone for Ferrari. Or are you more determined than ever to win the title that we thought would have been yours by now? And his answer basically said, well, lockdown was really tough for a number of reasons, and we've all had to do things that we didn't want to do. And he was talking, of course, about lockdown, but he was intimating that he didn't want to leave Ferrari. He never wanted to go. I still think he's got so much to prove, and I think he's coming out swinging. I really think they're going to have a problem this year, because if they think it's all going to be Charles's way, he's got his dukes up and he's going to come out punching.
Well, he's just got nothing to lose, Will.
This is it. And has all of the options for him. Close down the pit lane. Aston Martin apparently don't want him. Red Bull won't have him back. So where's it going to be? Alfa Romeo or Renault? Like, where does Sebastian... I can't believe we're talking about where does a 4-time world champion end up?
I know. And the thing is, I don't think he genuinely thought we'd be thinking about this. He said earlier today he was surprised when Matteo called him to say that they're not interested in him anymore. And he's talking about not wanting to take a sabbatical, like he wants to either find a drive, or this could be it for us to see in Sebastian Vettel. I say all this based on the fact that he might come out fighting, like you said, and he could be a championship contender this year, and then does suddenly everyone want him? like, things can change, can't they, in Formula One?
Huge. And talking about things changing, Valtteri Bottas, is this the year that he can take the fight to Lewis Hamilton? He looks trim, he looks ready, but Lewis Hamilton, and actually Stevie's sitting just behind the barrier there if you come around and just get a look at him. I don't think I've ever seen Lewis Hamilton looking fitter. You know, we saw the pictures of him on the Black Lives Matter march in London, and his guns out. I've never seen him looking so trim. He looks unbelievable.
He looked like he was loving the training, didn't he? Wherever he was, it looked exotic, but he was definitely making the most of it, and he was pushing hard because he wants that 7th world title, and he wants it this year. He doesn't want to hang about. And of all the drivers, I think, up and down this grid who can react to unpredictability, I think Lewis is one of the best, and I think it's going to be very difficult for anyone to beat him.
And pulling it nicely full circle as well. Of course, Lewis incredibly vocal. As you say, a number of drivers have been. Daniel wrote a lovely thing actually on social media today all about the Black Lives Matter movement. Lewis had some lovely stuff in the pen today as well. He, of course, has his new commission that he's set up. He's been very vocal about how positive he believes the We Race as One movement is here in Formula One. And somebody who, whether he wins a 7th world title or can, at the same time, you know, I think it's one thing or the other, make a movement for change and have people, you know, making good on this discussion and being part of a change. I think it's hugely important for him.
I think it's really the start, and Lewis was the catalyst to that. And I think it's great that he's taken that role, you know, that role model, and really pushed it, using his social media, using his platforms to do that. I think now all the teams and all the drivers are working together. And I think we've started that conversation, and I think now that we've started the conversation, we can get some momentum. And I think that's the main thing, isn't it?
Great stuff, mate. Thanks very much. We'll be bringing you one of these, as we said, every Thursday on a race week from the Formula One paddocks of the world, which means in 1 week's time we'll be in exactly the same place here in Austria. I'm going to go and anti-back my hands. You guys take care. Enjoy everything that's coming your way this weekend, of course, on F1 Digital and your channels at home. From Lawrence, though, and myself, for now, that's your lot.